The words didn't land softly. They tore through Elena's chest like claws through silk, shredding everything she'd believed about fate, destiny, and the man standing before her. I, Cale Thorne, Alpha of the Ashwood Pack, reject you as my mate. The ceremonial hall fell silent. 200 wolves stood witness, their eyes gleaming in the low firelight. Some looked away. Others stared, mouths slightly open, as if they couldn't believe what they were hearing either. Elena's knees buckled, but she didn't fall. She wouldn't give him that satisfaction. Cale's jaw was set, his silver eyes cold and distant. He looked nothing like the man who had pulled her into shadowed corners during the last full moon, who had whispered her name like a prayer against her throat. That man was gone. Or maybe he'd never existed at all. Beside him, her sister Mira stood in a gown of white and gold, her hand resting possessively on Cale's arm. Her smile was small, victorious, the kind that said, "I won," without uttering a single word. "Cale," Elena whispered, hating how broken her voice sounded. "You can't." "I can." His voice was granite. "The bond is severed. You are no longer mine, and I am no longer yours." The mate bond snapped like a thread pulled too tight. Pain exploded through Elena's chest, white-hot and suffocating. She gasped, her hand flying to her heart as if she could hold the pieces together. She felt him disappear from the place inside her soul where he'd lived for the past 3 months. Gone. Mira stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with false sympathy. "I'm sorry, Elena. But you have to understand Cale needs a Luna who can lead. Someone strong, someone the pack respects. Someone like me." The unspoken words hung in the air. Elena's nails bit into her palms. You knew he was mine, and you took what I deserved." Mira's smile sharpened. "You were always too soft for this world, little sister. Too human." The insult stung because it was true. Elena wasn't a shifter. She was human, raised among wolves after her mother, a wolf, died giving birth to Mira. Their father, heartbroken and lost, had done his best, but Elena had always been the outsider, the one who couldn't shift, the one who didn't belong. And now, even fate had abandoned her. Cale's voice cut through the tension. "The ceremony will proceed. Mira Ashford will be named Luna of the Ashwood Pack." Cheers erupted. Wolves howled in celebration, their voices rising to the rafters. But Elena heard none of it. She was drowning, sinking into a darkness so complete she couldn't find the surface. She turned and walked. Not ran, she wouldn't run. But every step away from that hall felt like wading through water, heavy and impossible. Behind her, she heard Mira's laughter. Light, careless, as if she hadn't just destroyed her sister's entire world. The forest was dark and cold, but Elena welcomed it. She stumbled through the underbrush, her breath coming in short, painful gasps. Her chest ached, a phantom pain where the bond had been. She pressed a hand to her stomach, trying to steady herself. That's when she felt it. A flutter, soft, almost imperceptible. Elena froze. No. She'd suspected for weeks, but she'd told herself it was stress, exhaustion, anything but the truth. But now, with the bond severed and her world collapsing, there was no denying it. She was pregnant. With Cale's child. A sob tore from her throat, raw and desperate. She sank to her knees in the dirt, her hands trembling as they hovered over her stomach. A child, Cale's child, the heir to the Ashwood Pack, and he'd just rejected her in front of everyone. He didn't know. She hadn't told him. She'd been waiting for the right moment, some sign that he truly wanted her, that their bond was more than just biology and fate. She'd been a fool. Elena. The voice came from the shadows, low and rough. She jerked her head up, her heart pounding. A man stepped into the moonlight. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell into eyes the color of storm clouds. Scars marred his face and neck, old wounds that spoke of battles survived. He moved like a predator, silent and deliberate. She didn't recognize him, but the way he looked at her like he could see straight through her skin to the truth beneath made her breath catch. "Who are you?" she managed. "Someone who knows what it's like to be cast aside." His gaze flicked toward the distant lights of the pack house. "I heard what happened. The whole forest heard." Shame burned through her. Of course they had. Wolves had excellent hearing. "Are you here to gloat?" she asked bitterly. "No." He crouched in front of her, bringing himself to her level. Up close, she could see the weariness in his eyes, the kind that came from carrying too much weight for too long. I'm here to offer you a choice. A choice? You can stay here. Let them pity you. Watch your sister play Luna while you fade into the background. His voice was quiet, but there was steel beneath it. Or you can come with me. Elena stared at him. I don't even know you. My name is Darius Kane. I was once part of a pack, but I left. Now I wander, and I'm offering you the same freedom. Freedom? She laughed, the sound hollow. I'm human. I have no power, no pack, and nowhere to go. Darius tilted his head, studying her. You're wrong about that. What? He stood, offering her his hand. You're carrying something far more powerful than you realize. And if you stay here, they'll take it from you. Her blood turned to ice. How do you... I can smell it. Life. New life. His eyes softened, just a fraction. That child is a gift, Elena, but here, it's also a weapon. One your sister will use against you the moment she finds out. Elena's mind raced. Mira would know eventually. And when she did, she looked at Darius's outstretched hand. Scarred, strong, steady. Why would you help me? She whispered. Because I know what it's like to lose everything. He met her gaze. And because sometimes, the ones cast aside are the ones who matter most. For a long moment, Elena didn't move. Then, slowly, she placed her hand in his. His grip was warm, grounding. Where will we go? She asked. Darius pulled her to her feet, his expression unreadable. Somewhere they'll never think to look. Somewhere you can decide who you want to be without a pack, without a mate, without anyone telling you you're not enough. Elena glanced back at the pack house one last time. The lights glowed warm and golden, but they no longer felt like home. She turned away. Let's go, she said. And together, they disappeared into the night. They walked for hours. Elena lost track of time somewhere between the third ridge and the moment her legs turned to lead. Darius moved through the forest like he was part of it, silent, sure-footed, never once looking back to see if she could keep up. She suspected he knew exactly how close she was to collapsing. When he finally stopped, dawn was breaking through the trees in thin strips of gold. Here, he said simply. Elena looked around, seeing nothing but trees and overgrown brush. Here what? Darius moved forward, pushing aside a curtain of hanging vines. Behind it, carved into the hillside itself, was a door. Weathered wood, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. He opened it without a key. Inside was a cabin, small, rough, but solid. A stone fireplace dominated one wall. Furs covered a wooden bed frame in the corner. Shelves held jars of dried herbs, candles, and things Elena couldn't identify in the dim light. It's safe, Darius said, as if reading her hesitation. No one knows about this place. Elena stepped inside, her body finally registering how exhausted she was. She sank onto a chair near the cold fireplace, her hands trembling. Darius moved efficiently, building a fire without speaking. Within minutes, flames crackled to life, casting warm shadows across the rough-hewn walls. You should eat, he said, pulling down a jar of something. And rest. I can't eat. Elena's stomach was in knots. Everything that had happened crashed over her again. Kale's rejection, Mira's triumph, the secret growing inside her that she couldn't tell anyone. Except Darius already knew. You're eating for two now, Darius said quietly, setting bread and dried meat in front of her. That child needs strength, even if you don't think you do. Elena stared at the food. Slowly, mechanically, she picked up the bread and took a bite. It tasted like sawdust, but she forced herself to swallow. Darius watched her for a moment, then moved to the window, his back to her. You can stay here as long as you need. Why are you doing this? The question burst out of her, raw and desperate. You don't know me. You owe me nothing. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, threaded with old pain. 5 years ago, I had a mate. Her name was Sarah. He didn't turn around. She was gentle, kind, everything a Luna should be. But she was also weak, according to my alpha. When a rival pack challenged us, he ordered me to reject her. Said she'd make us vulnerable. Elena's breath caught. What did you do? I refused. His hands curled into fists at his sides. So he killed her, made it look like the rival pack did it. And when I found out the truth, his voice dropped to something dangerous. I tore his throat out and left. Been running ever since. The silence stretched between them, heavy with shared grief. I'm sorry, Elena whispered, Don't be. Darius finally turned to face her. I'm telling you this so you understand. I know what it's like to lose everything because of pack politics. Because someone decided you weren't good enough. His storm gray eyes held hers. And I know what it's like to wish someone had helped when it mattered. Elena felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. She'd cried enough. Kyle doesn't know about the baby, she said softly. I never told him. Good. Darius's voice was firm. Don't. But he's the father. He has a right. He gave up his rights when he rejected you in front of his entire pack. Darius crossed his arms. That child is yours now. Only yours. And, if you tell him, he'll either take it from you or use it against you. Maybe both. Elena's hand moved instinctively to her stomach. The thought of losing this child, the only piece of the bond she had left, made her feel sick. What if he finds out anyway? She asked. Then we'll be long gone. Darius moved to the shelves, pulling down more supplies. This place is just temporary. In a few days, we'll head north. There are packs up there who don't ask questions, who take in strays. And you think they'll accept a human carrying an alpha's heir? Darius paused, then looked at her with something that might have been respect. You're smarter than you give yourself credit for. That's not an answer. No, he admitted. It's a gamble. But staying here? That's certain death. For you and that child. He set a blanket on the bed. Get some rest. We'll figure out the details later. Elena stood on shaking legs and moved to the bed. It smelled like pine and smoke. She lay down, pulling the blanket over herself, and stared at the ceiling. Darius? Yeah? Thank you. He didn't respond, but she heard him settle into the chair by the fire. The soft crackle of flames and his steady presence were the only sounds in the cabin. For the first time since the rejection, Elena felt almost safe. Almost. She woke to the sound of voices. Elena sat up, her heart pounding. Sunlight streamed through the small window she'd slept for hours, but outside, she heard them. Male voices, rough and aggressive. Darius was already at the door, his body tense, predatory. Stay quiet, he ordered without looking at her. Don't move. Who is it? She whispered. Hunters. His voice was barely audible. Ashwood hunters. Her blood turned to ice. Kale had sent them. Through the window, she could see 3 wolves in human form, armed with silver blades. They were searching the area, getting closer. They're tracking you, Darius murmured. You're sent. Elena's hands shook. What do we do? Darius's eyes flashed not silver like Kale's, but something darker, more primal. You trust me? She should say no. She barely knew him, but something in his gaze steadied her. Yes. Then hold on. Before she could ask what he meant, Darius moved. He grabbed her, pulled her close, and then he shifted. Not into a wolf, into something else. Something bigger, darker, more powerful. His body expanded, bones cracking and reforming, fur erupting across his skin in waves of midnight black. But it wasn't a wolf. It was something ancient, something that made every instinct in her body scream predator. Elena gasped, but Darius, or whatever he'd become, didn't give her time to process. He lifted her onto his back with surprising gentleness, and then he ran. The world blurred. Trees whipped past. The hunters' shouts faded behind them. And Elena held on, her mind reeling with one impossible thought. What is he? They didn't stop until nightfall. When Darius finally slowed, Elena's entire body ached from clinging to him. He'd carried her for miles, maybe dozens, through terrain no human could have crossed. Rivers, ravines, dense forest that seemed to part before him like water. He shifted back in a clearing beside a stream, his transformation smooth and controlled. One moment he was that massive, terrifying creature. The next, he was human again, breathing hard but otherwise unharmed. Elena slid from his back, her legs barely holding her. She stumbled to the stream and drank deeply, her mind spinning. What are you? She finally asked, her voice hoarse. Darius stood at the edge of the clearing, watching the darkness. Not what you expected. That's not an answer. No. He turned to face her. It's not. The firelight from the moon caught his scars differently now. Elena saw them for what they were, marks of survival, of battles fought against things she couldn't imagine. You're not a werewolf, she said slowly. No. But you're not human either. No. Elena's frustration flared. Then what? I'm a Dyer. The word fell between them like a stone. An old bloodline, older than werewolves, older than most shifter packs remember. His jaw tightened. We were hunted to near extinction 2 centuries ago. Now there are maybe a dozen of us left. Elena stared at him. She'd heard stories, whispered tales the elders told to scare young wolves. Creatures from before the Great Dividing, when shifter bloodlines were wild and untamed. Beasts that could tear through entire packs. Monsters. You're afraid, Darius said quietly, reading her face. She wanted to deny it, but her hands were shaking. Should I be? Yes. His honesty cut through her. I could kill you without thinking. Could tear apart those hunters before they even drew their blades. He took a step closer. But I won't. Because unlike the wolves who rejected you, I know what it's like to be hunted for what you are. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have come with me if I had? He raised an eyebrow. A human woman, pregnant and vulnerable, following a Dyer into the woods? He had a point. The hunters, she said, changing the subject. Will they find us? Not tonight. I covered our trail. Darius moved to gather wood for a fire. But they won't stop looking. Kale wants something, and he doesn't give up easily. He wants to make sure I'm gone. Elena's voice was bitter, to erase his mistake. Maybe, Darius struck flint, coaxing flames to life. Or maybe your sister convinced him you're a threat. Elena laughed without humor. A threat? I'm human. I have no power, no. You're carrying his heir. Darius's eyes locked on hers. That's more power than you realize. If that child is born, if the pack learns about it, everything changes. Mira's position as Luna becomes questionable. Kale's choice becomes a scandal. Elena's hand moved to her stomach. The flutter was stronger now, more insistent. They'd kill it, wouldn't they? To protect themselves. Darius didn't answer, but his silence was confirmation enough. Then we keep running, Elena said, her voice hardening. We go north like you said. Find a pack that won't ask questions. It's not that simple, Darius poked at the fire. The northern packs are territorial. They'll smell ashwood on you. They'll know you're running from something. So what do we do? Darius was quiet for a long moment, the fire casting shadows across his scarred face. When he spoke, his voice was careful. There's another option, dangerous, but possible. Tell me. There's a place, deep in the Blackwood territory. No pack claims it because the land itself is cursed, or so they say. He met her eyes. But I know the truth. It's not cursed. It's protected. By dire magic. Elena's heart skipped. Your people? What's left of them? He nodded slowly. They might take you in. Hide you. Help you deliver the child safely. Why would they help a human? Because you're with me. Darius's expression softened, just barely. And because they understand what it's like to be hunted for existing. Hope flickered in Elena's chest, fragile and dangerous. How far? 2 weeks on foot. Maybe less if we move fast. He hesitated. But Elena, you need to understand Dyer are not gentle. They're not civilized, like werewolf packs. They live by older laws, harsher rules, and they won't tolerate weakness. I'm already weak, Elena said quietly. I'm human, rejected, pregnant with a child whose father chose someone else. How much weaker can I get? Darius studied her, and something shifted in his gaze. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. You're stronger than you think? He said finally. Sarah was gentle, kind, and it got her killed. His voice roughened. But you? You have steel in you. I can see it. Elena looked away, uncomfortable with the intensity of his stare. I don't feel strong. You left. Darius leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. You walked away from everything you knew, everyone you loved, to protect that child. That's not weakness. That's survival. Tears burned Elena's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I didn't have a choice. Yes, you did. You could have stayed. Could have begged Kale to take you back. Could have fought your sister for a position you were never going to win. He shook his head. But you didn't. You chose yourself. And that child. Elena's hand pressed against her stomach again. The life inside her pulsed, steady and sure, like a tiny heartbeat syncing with her own. Will they accept it? She whispered. Your people. Will they accept a half-wolf, half-human child? Darius's expression turned distant. They'll accept what they must. And if they don't, his jaw tightened. I'll make them." The promise in his voice sent a shiver through her. Not fear, exactly. Something else. Something that felt almost like safety. "We should rest," Darius said, breaking the moment. "Tomorrow we start moving at first light. The hunters won't stay confused forever." Elena nodded and lay down beside the fire, using her jacket as a pillow. She watched Darius settle into a guard position, his back against a tree, his eyes scanning the darkness. "Darius?" "Yeah?" "Thank you, for not leaving me behind." He didn't look at her, but his voice softened. "Get some sleep, Elena." She closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling her under, but just before sleep claimed her, she heard him whisper something so quiet she almost missed it. "I won't let them hurt you." And somehow, she believed him. The third day of travel, Elena collapsed. One moment she was walking, pushing through exhaustion and nausea. The next, her vision tunneled and the ground rushed up to meet her. Darius caught her before she hit the earth. "Elena." His voice was sharp with concern. "Elena, look at me." She tried, but everything felt distant, muffled, like she was underwater. Her body burned and froze at the same time. "Damn it." Darius lifted her easily, cradling her against his chest. "Hold on." She wanted to tell him she was fine, that she could walk. But darkness swallowed the words. When Elena woke, she was warm. Too warm. She opened her eyes to find herself in a cave, wrapped in furs, with a fire blazing nearby. Her clothes had been changed. She now wore an oversized shirt that smelled like pine, and something distinctly male. Darius sat across from her, grinding herbs in a stone bowl. When he noticed she was awake, relief flashed across his face before his usual mask settled back in place. "You've been out for 6 hours," he said. Elena tried to sit up, but her body protested. "What happened?" "Fever, exhaustion, dehydration." He stood, bringing the bowl to her. "Drink this." "What is it?" "Something to bring your temperature down and settle your stomach." His eyes flickered to her abdomen. "The child is fine. I can still hear its heartbeat." Elena's hand flew to her stomach. Relief flooded through her, so intense it brought tears to her eyes. "I didn't. I wasn't trying to." "I know." Darius knelt beside her, his expression gentler than she'd ever seen it. "But you're pushing yourself too hard. Your body is trying to grow a life while running for its own. Something has to give." "We can't stop," Elena whispered. "The hunters are 2 days behind us now. We're safe here." He pressed the bowl into her hands. "Drink, then rest. We're not moving until you're stronger." Elena wanted to argue, but the truth was undeniable. She was falling apart. She took the bowl and drank. The liquid was bitter but warming, spreading through her chest like liquid heat. Darius watched her carefully. "When did you last eat a full meal?" Elena tried to remember. "The night before the ceremony, I think." 4 days ago." His jaw tightened. "You're starving yourself and that child." "I wasn't hungry," she said defensively. "Everything makes me sick." "That's the pregnancy talking." Darius moved to a pack near the cave wall and pulled out dried meat and a small pouch. This helped Sierra when she was. He stopped abruptly, the name hanging in the air between them. Elena's heart clenched. "She was pregnant?" Darius was silent for a long moment, his back to her. When he spoke, his voice was rough. 3 months. We'd just found out." He turned, and Elena saw raw pain in his eyes. "The alpha killed her before she could show, before anyone knew." "Darius," Elena whispered, horrified. "I'm so sorry." "Don't." He set the food beside her. "I didn't tell you for pity. I told you so. You'd understand why I'm not letting history repeat itself." His eyes locked on hers, fierce and unwavering. "You will eat. You will rest. And you will survive this. Both of you." The intensity of his words hit Elena like a physical force. This wasn't just about helping a stranger anymore. This was personal for him. A second chance to save someone he couldn't save before. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll eat." Something in his shoulders relaxed. Elena forced herself to take small bites of the meat, chewing slowly. It stayed down. The herb mixture Darius had given her was working. "Tell me about her," Elena said suddenly. "Sarah, if you want to." Darius returned to his spot across the fire, his expression distant. "She was. Sunlight. That's the only way I can describe her. She loved growing things, flowers, herbs, vegetables. Our den always smelled like lavender." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. She believed everyone had good in them. even the alpha who eventually killed her. She sounds beautiful. She was. He stared into the flames. She was also naive, trusting. I tried to protect her from the pack's politics, but he shook his head. You can't protect someone from the world they live in. Elena understood that truth too well. Is that why you didn't want me to trust Kale? Partly. Darius looked at her. But also because I saw what he was from the start. A wolf who values power over everything, including you. The words stung because they were true. Elena had felt it, deep down, even when the mate bond sang between them. Kale had always looked at her like a complication, not a gift. I was so stupid, she murmured. I thought the bond meant something, that fate wouldn't be cruel enough to pair me with someone who didn't want me. Fate is cruel, Darius said bluntly. It pairs people based on genetics and bloodlines, not compatibility, not love. He paused. Sierra and I weren't fated mates. We chose each other. Elena looked up, surprised. Really? Really? His expression softened. And it was stronger than any bond I've ever seen. Because it was ours. Not handed to us by the moon or destiny or whatever wolves believe in these days. Elena absorbed this, her hand resting on her stomach. What if I never feel that way about anyone again? What if Kale was it? He wasn't. Darius's voice was certain. Trust me. How can you know? Because you're already healing. He gestured at her. When I found you in the woods, you were broken, shattered. But look at you now, fighting, surviving, protecting your child. That's not someone who's given up. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. I don't feel strong. You don't have to feel it for it to be true. Darius stood and added wood to the fire. Rest now. Tomorrow you'll feel better. And the day after that, stronger still. Elena lay back down, pulling the furs around herself. The cave was warm, the fire steady, and for the first time in days, she felt her body truly relax. Darius? Why do you care? She had to ask. Really? Why does any of this matter to you? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then barely audible. Because when Sierra died, I promised myself that if I ever got a second chance to save someone, I wouldn't fail. Elena's throat tightened. I'm not her. I know. His eyes met hers across the fire. You're you, and that's enough. The words settled over her like a blanket, warm and unexpected. Elena closed her eyes, feeling something shift inside her chest. Not the mate bond, but something gentler, quieter. Trust. Outside the cave, wind howled through the trees. But inside, beside the fire with a scarred Dyer watching over her, Elena finally felt safe enough to sleep. Elena woke to the sound of rain. Not the gentle patter of a spring shower, but the relentless drumming of a storm. Thunder rolled through the mountains, shaking the cave walls. Lightning flashed, illuminating Darius's silhouette at the cave entrance. He stood perfectly still, watching the deluge with an unreadable expression. How long? Elena asked, her voice rough with sleep. 2 hours. He didn't turn around. It's not stopping anytime soon. Elena sat up, wincing at the soreness in her muscles. But the fever was gone, and her stomach felt settled for the first time in days. We're stuck here. For now. She pulled the furs around herself and moved closer to the fire. The cave suddenly felt smaller, with both of them awake, the intimacy of the situation pressing in on her. They were alone, completely alone, miles from any pack, any civilization, just her and a Dyer who'd saved her life. You should eat, Darius said, finally looking at her. His eyes tracked over her face, assessing. You have color back. I feel better. Elena accepted the food he offered, more dried meat and some kind of root vegetable he'd roasted. Thank you for taking care of me. Don't thank me yet. We still have a week's travel ahead of us. But there was something softer in his voice, less guarded. They ate in silence, the storm providing a constant backdrop. Elena found herself studying him, really looking at him for the first time. The scars that covered his arms and neck, the way his dark hair fell into his eyes, the careful control in every movement he made. He was handsome, she realized, in a raw, dangerous way that was nothing like Kale's polished alpha appeal. You're staring, Darius said without looking up. Elena felt heat rush to her cheeks. Sorry. I was just wondering about your scars. His jaw tightened. Battle wounds, most of them. Most? He set down his food and rolled up his sleeve, revealing a particularly vicious scar that wrapped around his forearm like a brand. This one was punishment, for refusing to kill a rival pack's child. Elena's breath caught. They tortured you? The Alpha believed in discipline. Darius's voice was flat, emotionless. Said mercy was weakness. That dire were meant to be weapons, not protectors. He pulled his sleeve back down. I disagreed. So you left. After I killed him, yes. He met her eyes and there was no apology in them. I'd do it again. Elena should have been frightened, should have seen the violence in him and run. But all she felt was a strange understanding. He sounds like he deserved it. Something flickered in Darius's expression: surprise, maybe. Or respect. Most people don't see it that way. I'm not most people. Elena pulled her knees to her chest. I understand what it's like to want to hurt someone who's hurt you. When Kale rejected me, when Mira smiled like she'd won some prize, her voice cracked. I wanted to tear them apart. But you didn't. Because I'm human. I can't. She laughed bitterly. But I wanted to. Darius moved closer, sitting beside her instead of across the fire. The shift felt significant, intentional. Wanting violence and committing it are two different things. You're not weak for walking away. Then why does it feel like I am? Because they made you believe that. His voice dropped lower. That's what pack politics does, convinces you that your worth is tied to their approval. But it's not. He hesitated, then added quietly. You're worth more than any of them saw. Elena looked at him, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. You barely know me. I know enough. His storm gray eyes held hers. I know you chose your child over comfort. I know you walked into the unknown rather than stay somewhere that broke you. I know you're still standing when most would have given up. He paused. That's not nothing, Elena. Tears burned her eyes. She'd been rejected, abandoned, told she wasn't enough. But here was this scarred, dangerous man telling her she was worth something. It undid her. I'm scared, she whispered. Of everything. Of giving birth alone. Of raising a child that will always remind me of him. Of never being safe again. You're not alone. Darius's hand moved, hovering near hers but not quite touching. Not anymore. Elena stared at his hand, scarred. Strong. Steady. Slowly she reached out and laced her fingers through his. The touch was electric. Not like the mate bond had been fire and compulsion. Something that burned too hot to think clearly. This was different. Gentler. A warmth that spread slowly through her chest, grounding her. Darius went very still, his eyes locked on their joined hands. Elena. Don't. She tightened her grip. Don't pull away, please. He didn't. Instead, his thumb traced small circles on the back of her hand, the gesture almost unconscious. I'm not trying to replace him. I know. Elena's voice was steady. This isn't about him. It's about you. About this. She gestured between them. Whatever this is. I don't know what this is, Darius admitted, his voice rough. Neither do I. Elena managed a small smile. But it feels safe. Something in his expression cracked open, just for a moment. Vulnerability, raw and honest. I can't promise you safety. Not really. The world we're running through, it's brutal, unforgiving. But you'll try. It wasn't a question. Yes, his grip on her hand tightened. I'll try. Thunder crashed overhead, and Elena flinched. Darius shifted closer, his presence solid and reassuring beside her. Tell me about the Blackwood, Elena said, needing to focus on something other than how close he was. About your people. Darius was quiet for a moment, his thumb still tracing patterns on her hand. They're different. Dire don't have the same hierarchy as wolves. No alphas or lunas. We have elders, those who've survived the longest. They make decisions collectively. Will they judge me? For being human? Probably. He didn't sugarcoat it. But they'll also recognize strength when they see it. And survival. Those are the things Dire respect most. And the baby? Darius's jaw tightened. That's harder. A wolf-human hybrid. It's complicated. Some might see it as diluting bloodlines. Others might see it as an opportunity, proof that we can evolve, adapt. And you? Elena asked softly. What do you see? He looked at her, really looked at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. I see a child who deserves a chance, and a mother brave enough to give it one. Elena's throat tightened. I don't feel brave. You are. Darius lifted their joined hands slightly. You're here, aren't you? Still fighting. The rain continued its assault outside, but inside the cave, something had shifted between them. Something fragile and new and terrifying. Elena leaned her head against Darius's shoulder, testing the boundary. He stiffened for just a moment, then relaxed, his free hand coming up to rest gently on her arm. Sleep, he murmured. I'll keep watch. You need rest too. I'll rest when you're safe. Elena closed her eyes, letting his warmth seep into her. For the first time since the rejection, she didn't feel alone. And that was worth more than any mate bond. The storm passed by morning, leaving the world washed clean and impossibly green. Elena woke still wrapped in furs, but Darius was gone. Panic flared in her chest until she heard movement outside the cave, the sound of wood being chopped, steady and rhythmic. She emerged into brilliant sunlight to find him splitting logs, his shirt discarded, sweat gleaming on his scarred back. He moved with brutal efficiency, each swing of the axe precise and controlled. Elena's breath caught. Not from attraction, though she couldn't deny the pull, but from the sheer number of scars covering his skin. Dozens of them, crisscrossing his back like a map of violence, survived. He must have sensed her watching because he stopped, turning to face her. You're up. How long have you been out here? A few hours. He set the axe down and reached for his shirt. We can move again today. The rain will have washed away our scent trail. The hunters will lose us completely now. Elena should have felt relief. Instead, she felt something twist in her stomach. And then what? We just keep running forever? Until we reach the Blackwood. Darius pulled his shirt on, covering the evidence of his past. Then you'll have a choice. Stay with the dyer, or find somewhere else to disappear. And you? The question escaped before she could stop it. What will you do? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he moved to the fire and began packing their supplies with careful deliberation. I'll make sure you're settled, that the elders accept you. That's not what I asked. Darius's hands stilled. I don't know, Elena. I haven't thought that far ahead. Why not? Because he cut himself off, frustration flashing across his face. Because I haven't let myself. Elena crossed her arms, studying him. You're planning to leave. Once I'm safe, you're going to disappear again. It's what I do. His voice was harder now, defensive. I don't stay. I can't. Can't or won't. Does it matter? He stood abruptly. You'll have a place with the dyer, protection, a community for your child to grow up in. That's more than most get. But you won't be there. The words hung between them, heavier than Elena intended. Darius's expression shuddered completely. We should move. Daylight's burning. He turned away, effectively ending the conversation. But Elena saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands curled into fists before he forced them to relax. She'd hit a nerve. They traveled in silence for most of the day. The terrain grew rougher, the trees older and more twisted. Elena felt the change in the air, something ancient and watchful pressed against her skin. Even the birdsong sounded different here, almost mournful. We're entering dire territory, Darius said quietly. Old territory, from before the purges. It feels. Elena struggled for words. Alive. It is. Dire magic soaked into this land centuries ago. It remembers. He glanced at her. You might feel strange things here. See things. Don't trust everything your eyes tell you. That's comforting. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. I won't let anything hurt you. Before Elena could respond, Darius went rigid. His head snapped to the left, nostrils flaring. What is it? She whispered. Blood. His voice dropped to something primal. Fresh. He moved before she could react, disappearing into the underbrush with inhuman speed. Elena followed as quickly as she could, her heart hammering. She found him in a small clearing, crouched beside something on the ground. A wolf, dead, but still warm. Its throat had been torn out, and strange symbols were carved into the earth around it. Is this... Elena's voice shook. Is this a warning? Yes. Darius's expression was grim. From the Ashwood hunters. They're closer than I thought. How did they track us through the storm? They didn't. He touched one of the symbols, his jaw tightening. They're tracking me. These marks, they're dire killings. Old magic, used to hunt my kind. Elena's blood ran cold. They know what you are? Someone does. Darius stood, his eyes scanning the trees. And they've brought a hunter who knows how to track Heir. He turned to her, urgency sharpening his features. We need to move now. They ran. Elena pushed her body harder than she thought possible. Her hand pressed protectively over her stomach. Darius stayed close, his body positioned between her and whatever might be following. The forest blurred around them. Elena's lungs burned, her legs screamed in protest, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop. Behind them, she heard a howl. Not wolf, something else. Something that made every primitive instinct in her body scream danger. Darius. I know. His voice was tight. Don't look back, just run. Another howl, closer this time, and then another. They were being herded, Elena realized with growing horror, pushed toward something. Darius must have realized it too because he suddenly changed direction, pulling her sharply to the right. They crashed through dense undergrowth, branches tearing at their clothes and skin. And then the ground disappeared. Elena barely had time to scream before they were falling, tumbling down a steep embankment. She hit the ground hard, the air knocked from her lungs. Strong arms wrapped around her, Darius's body taking the brunt of the impact as they rolled. When they finally stopped, she was pinned beneath him, his weight pressing her into the damp earth. Don't move, he breathed against her ear. Don't make a sound. Above them, on the ridge they'd just fallen from, figures appeared. 3 of them, silhouetted against the sky. 2 were clearly wolves in human form, ashwood hunters. The 3rd was something else entirely. Tall, impossibly thin, with skin that seemed to shimmer like oil. Its eyes, if they could be called eyes, glowed a sickly yellow. A shadewalker, Darius whispered, horror threading through his voice. They brought a shadewalker. Elena had no idea what that meant, but the fear in Darius's voice told her everything she needed to know. The creature's head tilted, scenting the air. Elena held her breath, her body frozen beneath Darius's protective weight. For an eternal moment, nothing moved. Then one of the hunters spoke. Lost the trail. The Heir's close, the shadewalker hissed, its voice like wind through dead leaves. I can taste his fear. Darius's body tensed above Elena, every muscle coiled and ready to fight. Search the ravine, another hunter ordered. Elena's heart stopped. They were trapped. No way out. If those hunters came down here. Darius's hand covered her mouth gently, his eyes locking with hers. In them, she saw determination and something that looked heartbreakingly like goodbye. No, she wanted to scream. Don't you dare sacrifice yourself. But she stayed silent, tears streaming down her face, as the hunters began their descent into the ravine. And somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled not from the sky, but from the earth itself. The blackwood was waking. The ground trembled beneath them. Darius's eyes widened, recognition flashing across his face. He pressed closer to Elena, his body shielding hers completely as the earth groaned and shifted. What's happening? Elena breathed against his hand. The land, he whispered. It's protecting us. Above them, the hunters stumbled as roots erupted from the ravine walls, massive, ancient things that moved with terrible purpose. They twisted around the shadewalker's legs, pulling it down with inhuman strength. The creature shrieked, a sound that made Elena's ears ring and her vision blur. It clawed at the roots, its oily skin smoking where the wood touched it. Fall back, one of the ashwood hunters shouted. The blackwood's rejecting us. They scrambled up the embankment as more roots surged upward, creating a writhing wall between them and their prey. The shadewalker fought viciously, tearing through the roots with elongated claws. But for every one it destroyed, 3 more took its place. Darius pulled Elena to her feet, his hand locked around hers. Run, while it's distracted. They fled deeper into the ravine, following a narrow stream that cut through the rocks. Behind them, the shadewalker's screams grew fainter, muffled by the forest's assault. Elena's legs trembled with exhaustion, but Darius's grip kept her upright. They ran until the ravine opened into a hidden valley, lush and impossibly green, where massive trees grew so close together their branches formed a canopy that blocked out the sky. Darius finally stopped beside a fallen log, his chest heaving. We're safe, for now. Elena collapsed against the log, her hand pressed to her stomach. The baby fluttered beneath her palm, still alive, still strong despite everything. Relief made her dizzy. What was that thing? She gasped. The shadewalker? Darius's expression darkened. A hunter of hunters. They're summoned specifically to track supernatural beings. nearly impossible to kill, and they don't stop until their target is dead. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. Someone wants me badly enough to hire one. Cale wouldn't. This isn't about Cale anymore. Darius met her eyes. This is about someone who knows what I am and wants me eliminated. The Ashwood hunters are just pawns. Elena's blood ran cold. Who would do that? Old enemies? Dyer have them? He looked around the valley, his expression wary. But the land just saved us. That's never happened before. You said the Blackwood remembers. Maybe it recognizes you? Maybe. But he didn't sound convinced. His eyes tracked over the ancient trees, the way they leaned toward each other like conspirators sharing secrets. Or maybe it sensed something else. His gaze dropped to her stomach. Elena's breath caught. The baby? Half wolf, half human, conceived under a mate bond. Darius spoke slowly, working through the logic. That kind of life carries powerful magic. The kind old lands respond to. So it's protecting my child? Possibly. He moved closer, his hand hovering near her stomach before dropping away. May I? Elena nodded, her heart racing. Darius placed his palm gently over her abdomen. His eyes closed, and for a moment, he was perfectly still. Then his expression shifted surprise, wonder, and something that looked like reverence. It's strong, he murmured, stronger than it should be at this stage. His eyes opened, locking with hers. Elena, this child. It's not just half-wolf. There's something else in its bloodline, something ancient. What do you mean? I don't know. He pulled his hand back, looking shaken. But I can feel it. Power coiled and waiting, like the land itself recognizes it as kin. Elena's hand joined his, both of them touching the place where new life grew. Is that why the Blackwood helped us? I think so. Darius's voice was rough. I think your child just saved both our lives. The weight of that settled over them. Elena had known the baby was special, conceived from a fated mate bond, carried by a human in a supernatural world. But this was something more. Something neither of them understood. What if Cale finds out? Elena whispered. What if he realizes what this child could be? Then he'll do everything in his power to take it from you. Darius's jaw hardened. Which is why we need to reach the elders. Now, before the Shadewalker recovers. Can they help? They're the only ones who might understand what we're dealing with. He stood, offering her his hand. Come on, we're close now. Another day. Maybe two. Elena let him pull her to her feet, but she didn't release his hand. Darius, when we get there, when the elders accept me, she swallowed hard. Will you really leave? His expression shuddered, but not before she saw the conflict in his eyes. I'm a liability. A Shadewalker is hunting me. If I stay, it'll hunt you either way. Elena stepped closer, her free hand reaching up to touch the scars on his neck. He flinched but didn't pull away. You said you'd make sure I was settled, that the elders accepted me. But what about after? What about when I need someone who understands what it's like to be hunted, to be different? Elena, what about when this child needs someone to teach them how to survive in a world that will fear them? Her voice broke. You keep talking about making sure I'm safe, but I feel safest with you. Darius closed his eyes, his jaw working. You don't know what you're asking. Yes, I do. She pressed her palm flat against his chest, feeling his heartbeat thunder beneath her hand. I'm asking you to stay. Not out of duty or guilt or whatever debt you think you owe Sierra's memory, but because you want to. Because maybe, just maybe, you feel safe with me too. He opened his eyes, and the raw emotion in them nearly broke her. I can't lose someone again. I can't. Then don't. Elena rose on her toes, bringing them eye to eye. Don't lose me by leaving first. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then Darius's control shattered. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her with desperate strength. His forehead pressed against hers, his breath ragged. I'm terrified, he confessed, the words torn from somewhere deep. Every moment with you, I'm terrified. Of what? Of caring too much. Of failing again. Of watching you die because I wasn't strong enough, fast enough, good enough to save you. His voice cracked. I couldn't save Sarah. If I couldn't save you, you already have. Elena's hands framed his face, forcing him to look at her. Multiple times. You're still saving me, Darius. Every single day. That's not enough. It's everything. She brushed her thumb across his scarred cheek. "You're everything." The confession hung between them, too honest and raw to take back. Darius made a sound low in his throat, part surrender, part agony. Then he kissed her. Not gently, not carefully, but with the desperation of a man who'd been drowning and finally found air. Elena kissed him back just as fiercely, her fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. This wasn't the mate bond's compulsion. This was choice, messy and terrifying and real. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Darius pressed his forehead to hers again. "I'll stay," he whispered, "as long as you'll have me." Elena smiled through her tears. "That's a long time." "Good." His arms tightened around her. "Because I'm not going anywhere." Above them, the blackwood's branches rustled, and Elena could have sworn she heard approval in their whisper. The forest had claimed them both. They reached the dire settlement at dusk. Elena had expected something primitive, caves, perhaps, or rough shelters hidden among the trees. Instead, she found structures that seemed to grow from the forest itself. Homes carved into living trees, their walls pulsing with faint bioluminescence. Bridges woven from roots connected the dwellings, creating a network suspended between earth and sky. It was beautiful, and utterly alien. Figures emerged from the shadows as they approached. Dire, Elena realized, though they looked more human than Darius did in his shifted form. Their eyes, however, gave them away ancient, predatory, glowing faintly in the gathering darkness. Darius Kane. A woman stepped forward, her silver hair braided with bones and feathers. She looked perhaps 40, but her eyes held centuries. 5 years you've been gone. We thought you dead." "I should be." Darius's voice was respectful but firm. "Elder Rhiannon." The woman's gaze shifted to Elena, sharp and assessing. "You bring a human into our sanctuary, pregnant with wolf blood." Her nostrils flared. "And carrying something else. Something that makes the old magic sing." Elena's hand moved instinctively to her stomach. Darius stepped slightly in front of her, protective. "She needs asylum," he said. "Protection from Ashwood Pack and those hunting her. Why should we risk ourselves for wolf politics?" Another elder emerged, male, scarred even more heavily than Darius, with eyes like chips of amber. "We've stayed hidden precisely by avoiding pack entanglements. Because the child she carries isn't just wolf." Darius's voice carried an edge. The Blackwood itself rose to protect her. The land recognizes something in her bloodline. Murmurs rippled through the gathered dire. Rhiannon's eyes narrowed. The land hasn't responded to an outsider in 200 years. Not since... She stopped abruptly, exchanging a loaded glance with the male elder. "Not since what?" Elena found her voice, though it shook slightly. Rhiannon studied her for a long moment. "Come, the council will hear your story. Then we decide." The council chamber was a massive hollow in an ancient oak, its walls carved with symbols Elena couldn't read. 7 elders sat in a semicircle, their eyes reflecting firelight like mirrors. Elena stood in the center, Darius beside her. His presence was the only thing keeping her knees from buckling. "Speak," Rhiannon commanded. "Tell us how a human came to carry a child that calls to the old magic." Elena took a breath and began. She told them everything the Mott bond with Kale, the rejection, Mira's betrayal, Darius finding her in the woods. She told them about the Shadewalker, the hunters, the way the earth had risen to save them. She didn't tell them about the kiss. That felt too private, too new. When she finished, silence filled the chamber. "A rejected mate bond," the scarred elder said slowly. "That's rare. Most humans don't survive the severing." "She's stronger than she looks," Darius said quietly. "Perhaps." Rhiannon leaned forward. "But strength alone doesn't explain why the Blackwood protects her. Unless..." Her eyes fixed on Elena with unsettling intensity. "Who was your mother? Child?" "She died when I was born. My father said she was a wolf from a minor pack. Nothing special." "Your father lied." Another elder spoke, an ancient woman whose skin was like tree bark, cracked and weathered. Or he didn't know the truth himself. Elena's heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" "May I?" The old woman gestured toward Elena. Elena nodded, though fear crept up her spine. The elder stood and approached, moving with surprising grace despite her age. She placed gnarled fingers on Elena's temples, and suddenly Elena felt heat, magic, something vast and ancient flowing through her veins, dormant but undeniably present. The elder pulled back, her expression grave. "She carries dire blood. Diluted, perhaps 3 or 4 generations removed, but it's there. Sleeping. The chamber erupted. Impossible. A hybrid. The bloodline was extinct. Darius's hand found Elena's, grounding her as the world tilted sideways. I'm part Dyer? Your mother must have been descended from one of the lost families. Rhiannon's voice cut through the chaos. Those who tried to blend into wolf packs during the purges, hiding what they were. She looked at Elena with something that might have been sympathy. You never shifted because the blood was too thin. But it's there. And now, combined with wolf genetics through your child. The baby could shift into either form, the scarred elder finished. Or both, a true hybrid. Elena's knees did buckle then. Darius caught her, his arms steady around her waist. This changes things, Rhiannon said. Though whether that was good or bad, Elena couldn't tell. She still needs protection, Darius insisted. The Shadewalker won't stop. And if Ashwood Pack discovers what her child could be, they'll either kill it or weaponize it. The old woman nodded. Neither option is acceptable. Then you'll grant her asylum? Hope flared in Elena's chest. The elders exchanged glances, some unspoken conversation passing between them. Finally, Rhiannon spoke. We will grant asylum, but there are conditions. Name them, Darius said immediately. First, the child must be raised among us, taught Dyer ways, Dyer magic. It's too dangerous to let such a hybrid exist without proper training. Elena nodded. She'd already planned to stay. Second, you, Elena, must swear a blood oath to the Blackwood, your life for the land's protection. Break that oath, and the forest itself will claim you. Elena's throat tightened, but she met Rhiannon's gaze steadily. I agree. And third, Rhiannon's eyes shifted to Darius. You must stay, Darius Kane. The child will need a protector who understands both sides of its nature. Someone who can teach it to survive in a world that will fear it. Darius went very still beside Elena. He already agreed to stay, Elena said quickly, her hand tightening on his. Rhiannon's expression softened slightly. Did he? Good. Because we would have required it anyway. She stood, the other elders rising with her. Welcome home, Darius. And welcome to the Blackwood, Elena Ashford. May the old magic keep you both. The elders filed out, leaving Elena and Darius alone in the chamber. You really meant it, Elena whispered. When you said you'd stay. Darius turned to face her, his hands coming up to frame her face. I meant it, every word. His thumbs brushed her cheeks. I'm done running. From my past, from my fear, from... He hesitated. From this. From you. We barely know each other, Elena said, but she was smiling through tears. Then we'll learn. He pressed his forehead to hers. We have time now, all the time in the world. Outside, the Blackwood sang, branches rustling, roots humming, the ancient magic welcoming them home. Elena closed her eyes and let herself believe it. For the first time since the rejection, she felt something that wasn't pain or fear or desperation. She felt hope. And in Darius's arms, surrounded by magic older than memory, she finally felt like she belonged. 3 weeks passed in the Blackwood. Elena learned to read the forest's moods when the trees whispered warnings, when the roots shifted to create new paths. She learned which herbs settled her stomach, which songs the Dyer sang to coax magic from the earth. Her body changed, her stomach rounding visibly now, and with it came a strange new awareness. She could feel the baby's presence like a second heartbeat, and sometimes, late at night, she swore she felt something else, a brush of ancient power, wild and untamed. Darius stayed close, teaching her how to move through the forest without disturbing it, how to listen for danger in the silence between birdsong. They shared a dwelling carved into a massive oak, its interior warm and surprisingly comfortable. They hadn't kissed again since that day in the valley, but the tension between them grew thicker with each passing night, each accidental touch, each moment their eyes met across the fire. Elena wanted to close that distance, but something held her back, the memory of Kale, perhaps, or the fear that this fragile peace would shatter if she reached for too much too soon. Tonight, though, something felt different. The forest was too quiet. Elena woke to find Darius already at the window, his body tense, alert. What is it? She whispered. Something's wrong. His voice was low. The wards are flickering. Someone's testing them. Before Elena could respond, a howl split the night, unmistakably wolf, unmistakably Ashwood. Her blood turned to ice. They found us. Impossible. Darius turned to her, his eyes already shifting to that predatory glow. The wards should have kept them out. Unless... An explosion of sound wood splintering, shouts, the clash of combat. Darius grabbed her arm. Stay here. Don't leave this dwelling no matter what you hear. Darius. But he was already gone, shifting mid-leap into his massive dire form and disappearing into the chaos outside. Elena pressed herself against the wall, her heart hammering. Through the window, she saw flashes of movement. Dire fighting wolves, magic crackling through the air like lightning. And then she saw him. Kael. He stood at the edge of the settlement, silver eyes scanning the dwellings with cold precision. He looked different, harder, leaner, like something had hollowed him out from the inside. Beside him stood Mira, her expression triumphant. Elena's hands curled into fists. They'd led the attack. Somehow they'd broken through defenses that had stood for centuries. A dire warrior fell near Kael, and he dispatched it with brutal efficiency. He was hunting, Elena realized. Hunting for something specific. Hunting for her. There. Mira pointed directly at Elena's dwelling. I can smell her. She's in there. No. 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 Elena backed away from the window, her mind racing. She couldn't let them take her. Couldn't let them take the baby. Her hand found the knife Darius had given her, silver, etched with protective runes. It felt pathetically small against an alpha wolf. The door exploded inward. Kael filled the doorway, his presence overwhelming in the small space. Elena. She raised the knife, her hand trembling. Stay back. He didn't. He stepped inside, and she saw it then, the mate bond, severed but still leaving phantom echoes. His eyes tracked over her, landing on her rounded stomach. Something flickered in his expression. Shock, then calculation. You're pregnant. His voice was flat. Not your concern. It's mine. He moved closer, and Elena pressed herself against the far wall. That child is mine, Elena. An heir to Ashwood Pack. You rejected me. Her voice shook with rage. You chose Mira. You don't get to claim anything now. I made a mistake. The words sounded rehearsed, hollow. The pack elders convinced me that a human Luna would weaken us. But I see now that I'm carrying something valuable? Elena's laugh was bitter. You don't want me, Kael. You want the baby. What it represents. His jaw tightened. Come back to Ashwood. We'll reinstate the bond. You'll be Luna. No. The word came out stronger than she felt. Mira appeared in the doorway, her eyes glittering with malice. She's been living with a dyer, Kael. She's tainted. The child is probably corrupted too. Kael's eyes narrowed. What dyer? As if summoned, Darius crashed through the wall in his shifted form, wood exploding around him. He landed between Elena and Kael, a mountain of black fur and primal fury. Kael shifted instantly, his silver wolf meeting Darius's dark beast. They collided with earth-shaking force. Elena screamed, but the sound was lost in the violence. They tore at each other with savage intensity, claws raking, teeth snapping, blood splattered the walls. No! Elena tried to move forward, but Mira grabbed her, yanking her backward. Finally, Mira hissed in her ear. Finally, you'll lose everything like I did. Elena twisted, confusion cutting through her fear. What? You think you were special? Mira's grip tightened painfully. You think Kael chose me because I was better? She laughed, the sound unhinged. He never wanted either of us. But Father forced his hand, and Kael chose the sister who could give him power, not the weak human who reminded him of his own inadequacy. You're insane. And you're a fool. Mira's claws extended when had she shifted partially, pressing against Elena's throat. That child should have been mine. Everything should have been mine. Through her terror, Elena felt it, that brush of power she'd sensed before, stronger now. The baby responding to danger. The ground trembled. Roots erupted through the floor, wrapping around Mira's legs. She shrieked, releasing Elena, clawing at the wood that held her fast. Elena stumbled forward just as Darius landed a devastating blow, sending Kael crashing into the far wall. The alpha shifted back to human form, blood streaming from a dozen wounds. She's mine now, Darius growled, his voice barely recognizable. Leave, or I'll finish what I started. Kael's silver eyes found Elena, and for just a moment, she saw something that might have been regret. The child is Ashwood's heir. This isn't over. Yes, Elena said, her voice steady despite everything. It is. I reject you, Kyle Thorne. I reject everything you represent. This child is mine. Only mine. The words carried weight. Magic. She felt the last phantom threads of the mate bond disintegrate completely. Cale's face went blank with shock. You can't. I can. I just did. Elena moved to Darius's side, her hand finding his fur. Now leave. Before the Blackwood decides you're not worth letting out alive. As if in response, the roots holding Mira began to drag her toward the earth. Her screams intensified. Cale grabbed his struggling mate and hauled her free with brutal force. This isn't finished, he snarled. But there was defeat in his eyes. He fled, dragging Mira with him. The remaining Ashwood wolves retreated, following their alpha into the night. Silence fell, broken only by Elena's ragged breathing and Darius's low growl. He shifted back to human form, swaying slightly. Blood covered him, and Elena couldn't tell how much was his. Darius. He caught her as her knees gave out, pulling her against his chest. His heart thundered beneath her ear. You rejected him, he whispered, awe threading through his voice. You actually did it. He had no claim. Elena's hands fisted in his torn shirt. Not anymore. Not ever. Darius tilted her face up, his eyes searching hers. What does that make us? I don't know. Elena's voice broke. But I know I want to find out. He kissed her, then fierce and claiming and real. Elena kissed him back, tasting blood and victory and freedom. When they pulled apart, Rhiannon stood in the destroyed doorway, her expression unreadable. The Alpha will return, she said quietly. With more force next time. Then we'll be ready, Darius replied, his arms still wrapped around Elena. The elder's lips curved slightly. Yes, I believe you will. The weeks that followed were quieter, but tension hummed beneath the surface. The Dire reinforced their wards, weaving old magic so dense that even a Shadewalker would struggle to penetrate it. Elena trained with the elders, learning to sense the Blackwood's rhythms, to draw strength from the earth beneath her feet. And she learned about her heritage. Your great-grandmother was Dire, Rhiannon explained one afternoon, her fingers tracing symbols in the dirt. She fell in love with a wolf, bore children, and tried to hide what she was. The blood thinned with each generation, but it never disappeared. She looked at Elena with ancient eyes. It was waiting, for the right catalyst. The baby, Elena whispered, her hand on her swelling stomach. Yes, wolf and human and Dire, all combined. The child will be powerful, Elena, perhaps more powerful than any of us can imagine. Rhiannon's expression grew grave. That's why Cale will come back. That's why you must be ready. But tonight, Elena wasn't thinking about Kyle, or wars, or threats. Tonight, she was watching Darius repair their dwelling, his movements efficient and sure. They'd been living together for over a month now, dancing around the pool between them. Stolen glances, hands that lingered too long, conversations that stretched into dawn, but nothing more than that single kiss. Elena was tired of waiting. You're staring again, Darius said without turning around. Heat rushed to her cheeks. I was just thinking. About? He set down his tools and faced her, firelight casting shadows across his scarred features. About us. She moved closer, her heart hammering. About how we keep pretending there isn't something here. His expression shuddered slightly. Elena, don't. She placed a hand on his chest, feeling his heart race beneath her palm. Don't pull away, not now. I'm trying to do the right thing. His voice was strained. You've been through trauma. The rejection, the attack, learning about your bloodline. You're vulnerable. I'm not fragile. Elena's eyes flashed. Stop treating me like I'll break. That's not what He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I don't want to be a replacement. Someone you turn to because you're lonely or scared or... Is that what you think this is? Elena's voice rose. That I'm using you as some kind of rebound? Aren't you? The question hung between them, sharp and painful. Elena stepped back, hurt lancing through her chest. If that's what you believe, then maybe I've been fooling myself about. Darius moved faster than thought, closing the distance between them. His hands framed her face, tilting it up to meet his desperate gaze. I'm terrified, he confessed, his voice raw. Every moment I'm with you, I'm terrified. Because this isn't just attraction or convenience or two broken people finding comfort. His thumb brushed her cheek. This is real, and real things can be destroyed. I've already lost one person I loved. If I lose you, you won't. Elena's hands covered his, keeping them pressed against her face. I'm not Sarah. I'm not going to disappear or die because you cared too much. You don't know that. Neither do you. She turned her head, pressing a kiss to his scarred palm. But I know I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of letting fear decide what I get to have. Her eyes locked with his. I want this. I want you. Not because you saved me, not because I'm running from Kale, but because when I think about my future, about raising this child, about building a life, her voice softened. I see you there. I want you there. Darius's control cracked. He pulled her close, his lips finding hers with bruising intensity. This kiss was different from the others, deeper, more desperate, like he was trying to merge their souls through sheer force of will. Elena melted into him, her hands sliding up his chest to tangle in his hair. She poured everything into that kiss, her fear, her hope, her growing feelings that terrified her as much as they exhilarated her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Darius rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he whispered, the words tumbling out like a confession. God help me, I love you. And it terrifies me. Elena's heart stopped, then restarted with painful force. Say it again. I love you. His arms tightened around her. I've been trying not to. Trying to convince myself this was just protection or duty or anything else. But I can't lie anymore. Not to you, not to myself. Tears streamed down Elena's face. I love you too. The words felt like jumping off a cliff, exhilarating and terrifying and utterly freeing. Darius kissed her again, softer this time, reverent. I don't know how to do this. Haven't let myself feel this way since Sierra. Don't know if I remember how to. We'll figure it out. Elena's smile was tremulous but genuine. Together. Badly, probably. But together. He laughed, the sound rusty but real. Together. They stood wrapped in each other's arms as the fire burned low, the blackwood singing softly around them. Elena felt the baby flutter, as if responding to the emotion filling the room. Does it hurt? Darius asked softly, his hand moving to rest on her stomach. The baby. No, it feels like. Elena searched for words. Like hope, like possibility. She placed her hand over his. Like family. Darius went very still. Family. If you want. Vulnerability crept into her voice. I know it's not your child biologically, but nothing. His voice was fierce. I'll be there for every moment. Every midnight feeding, every first step, every scraped knee. His eyes met hers, blazing with conviction. This child will know they're loved, protected, wanted. By both of us. Elena's sob was half laugh, half cry. You really mean that? With everything I am. He pulled her close again, his chin resting on top of her head. I couldn't save Sierra's child, but I can protect yours. Raise it. Love it. His voice dropped. If you'll let me. Yes. Elena's arms wrapped around him as much as her stomach allowed. Yes, to all of it. They stayed like that for a long time, the future spreading before them, uncertain and dangerous and infinitely precious. Outside, the Blackwood's magic pulsed with approval. The ancient trees had witnessed countless bonds over the centuries, but this one forged in trauma and choice rather than fate resonated differently. This was love earned, not given. And that made it unbreakable. Later, as they lay together on the bed of furs, Elena's head on Darius's chest and his arms wrapped protectively around her, she felt something she'd never expected to feel again. Peace. Whatever comes, Darius murmured into her hair. Whatever Kale tries, whatever dangers we face them together. Together, Elena agreed, her hand finding his in the darkness. And in that moment, with the man she loved holding her close and new life growing within her, Elena finally understood something fundamental. Home wasn't a place. It wasn't a pack or a bloodline or even a magical forest. Home was this, right here, right now. With Darius. Always. The labor began on the night of the full moon. Elena had known something was different when she woke. The baby's presence had shifted, pressing downward with urgent purpose. The Blackwood itself seemed to hold its breath, the usual nighttime sounds falling silent. Darius, she gasped, gripping his arm. He was awake instantly, his eyes finding hers in the darkness. It's time? She nodded, unable to speak through the contraction that seized her body. Within minutes, the dwelling filled with dire. Rhiannon took charge, her ancient hands surprisingly gentle as she examined Elena. Other women brought hot water, herbs, soft furs for the birthing bed. Darius stayed at Elena's side, his hand locked with hers, whispering encouragement when the pain became unbearable. "I can't," Elena sobbed during a particularly brutal contraction. "It's too much." "Yes, you can." Darius's voice was steady, grounding. "You're the strongest person I know. You survived rejection, hunters, a shade walker. You can survive this." That was easier. She tried to laugh, but it came out as a cry. "I know." He pressed his forehead to hers. "But you're not alone. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." The hours blurred together pain and pressure and Rhiannon's calm commands. Elena lost track of time, lost track of everything except Darius's hand in hers, and the overwhelming need to bring this child into the world. And then, just as dawn broke through the canopy, painting everything gold, a cry. Sharp and furious and unmistakably alive. "A daughter," Rhiannon announced, her voice thick with emotion. "You have a daughter, Elena." The elder placed the baby in Elena's arms, and the world stopped. She was perfect, impossibly, unbearably perfect. Tiny fists waving, dark hair plastered to her head, eyes squeezed shut as she wailed her displeasure at being born. "Hello," Elena whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Hello, little one." The baby's cries quieted at the sound of her voice. Slowly, impossibly, her eyes opened. They were silver, not quite wolf, not quite human, something in between luminous and ancient and aware in a way that made Elena's breath catch. "She has his eyes," Elena murmured. Kael's eyes, the one piece of him she couldn't erase. "Look closer," Rhiannon said softly. Elena did, and realized the silver wasn't uniform flecks of storm gray threaded through them. Darius's color. Impossible, biologically speaking. But then, nothing about this child had ever been ordinary. Darius leaned in, his expression awestruck. "Can I?" Elena carefully transferred the baby into his arms. He held her like she was made of spun glass, his scarred hands impossibly gentle. "Hello, little warrior," he whispered. "I'm Darius. He looked at Elena, question in his eyes. "You're her father," Elena said firmly, "in every way that matters." His eyes shone with unshed tears. "What will we name her?" Elena had thought about this for weeks. "Lyra. It means Song of the Forest." "Lyra," Darius repeated, testing the name. The baby made a small sound, almost like agreement. He laughed, the sound breaking on a sob. "It's perfect. She's perfect." Rhiannon approached, her expression serious. "May I examine her? I need to understand what we're dealing with." Reluctantly, Darius handed Lyra to the elder. Rhiannon's hands glowed faintly as she passed them over the infant's body, reading the magic within. Her eyes widened. "Extraordinary." "What?" Elena pushed herself up on her elbows despite the exhaustion. "What is it?" "She carries all three bloodlines fully realized. Wolf, human, dire." Rhiannon looked up, wonder and concern warring in her ancient face. "I've never seen anything like this." "She's not diluted or hybrid, she's complete. All three at once." "What does that mean?" Darius asked. "It means she'll be able to shift into both forms, wolf and dire. It means she'll have human reasoning and emotional depth that pure shifters lack. It means," Rhiannon's voice dropped, "she has the potential to unite the bloodlines that have been at war for centuries, or to be torn apart by them." The words settled over the room like snow. "They'll come for her," Elena said quietly. "Kael, other packs, once they know what she is." "Yes," Rhiannon handed Lyra back to Elena, "but they'll have to go through the entire Blackwood to get her. And us." She looked at the gathered deer, who all nodded in fierce agreement. "We protect our own." "She's one of us now," the old, weathered elder said from the doorway. "Dire blood runs in her veins. That makes her family." Elena felt tears spill over again. Family. She'd lost hers when Kael rejected her, when Mira betrayed her. But here, in this impossible forest among ancient beings, she'd found it again. 3 months later, everything had changed. Lyra grew impossibly fast, her eyes tracking movement with uncanny awareness. Sometimes her baby babbles sounded almost like words. And once, when a lesser dire had approached too aggressively, she'd let out a cry that made every shifter in the settlement freeze. Power. Even as an infant, she radiated it. Elena sat outside their dwelling, Lyra sleeping against her chest in a woven sling. The afternoon sun filtered through the leaves, warm and golden. She'd learned to love the Blackwood, its moods, its ancient magic, the way it sang to her daughter. Darius emerged from the dwelling, 2 cups of tea in hand. He'd been out on patrol earlier, checking the wards for any sign of Ashwood scouts. "Anything?" Elena asked. "Nothing." He settled beside her, pressing a cup into her free hand. "Cale's been quiet. Too quiet. Maybe he's given up." Maybe. But Darius didn't sound convinced. Or maybe he's planning something bigger. Elena watched Lyra sleep, her tiny fist curled against Elena's chest. "Let him come. He'll find we're not the same people who ran." "No," Darius agreed, his arm coming around Elena's shoulders. "We're not." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the forest move around them. Elena thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago, broken, rejected, convinced she was worthless. That woman felt like a stranger now. "Do you ever regret it?" Elena asked suddenly. "Staying? Taking on someone else's mess?" Darius turned to look at her, his expression fierce. "Not for a single moment." He cupped her face with his free hand. "You and Lyra, you're my family now. My choice. My future." He kissed her softly. "I've never been more certain of anything." Elena leaned into him, warmth spreading through her chest. "I love you. I love you too." He kissed her forehead, then Lyra's. "Both of you. Always." Lyra stirred, her silver-gray eyes opening. She looked between her parents with that unsettling awareness, then made a small, contented sound. The Blackwood hummed around them, ancient magic recognizing and protecting its own. In the distance, Elena heard the Dyer beginning their evening songs, wordless melodies that spoke of survival, of unity, of hope against impossible odds. She joined her voice to theirs, soft and tentative at first, then stronger. Darius added his own, deep and resonant. And Lyra impossibly seemed to hum along, her infant voice finding harmony with theirs. 3 bloodlines, 3 voices, 1 family. Whatever came next, whether Kyle returned with an army, whether other threats emerged from the shadows, they would face it together. Because that's what families did. And here, in the heart of the Blackwood, surrounded by ancient magic and chosen bonds, Elena had finally found where she belonged. Not because fate demanded it, but because love had grown in the spaces where fate had failed. And that, Elena thought as she watched the sunset paint the forest gold, was the most powerful magic of all.